Operation Protective Edge, 2004 Israeli conflict, which killed about 2,200 Palestinians, maybe 70 Israeli soldiers, a couple civilians. 2,200 people were killed, and they were just mowing the grass, just habitually, systemically attack Palestine, get them to scale back, get more settlers in. Just every once in a while, just attack them so that way they can take more of their property, kills more of the Palestinian people, makes less people who they got to occupy. You had the Freedom Flotilla with Cynthia McKinney. You weren't even allowed to give food to the Palestinians because of the Israeli blockade. And Israel gets away with all their crimes because of the United States veto in the United Nations. There's 5 countries in the Security Council who have veto power, and the U.S. is one. So even if the whole world condemns Israel, the United States covers their asses up. So when we talk about France and how they treat the rest of the world, let's take a look at their economic system. The CFA franc, colloquially the franc, is the name of 2 currencies used in Africa which are guaranteed by the French Treasury. The 2 CFA French currencies are the West African CFA franc and the Central African CFA franc. So you can see there's 14 countries that are using France's currency system. There's been some talk of creating the AFO, which is like the euro, but it's for all of Africa. France has kind of jumped on board of this. They act like their interest doesn't matter, but it does matter. Now, here's a whole list of things that it actually takes. But let's take a look at the countries first. So there's 14 countries, right? They got the Western African states and then the Central African states. And these are the ones that France still has control over. Not just their economic, their currency, but they're allowed to invade the countries if they want to. They're allowed to go in the countries to protect their own interest. And so let's see, this is Mali. That's that big country right here. So Mali was where a terrorist attack just happened. 15 to 25 people had died. There's Senegal, some tiny country here, I'm not for sure. There's Liberia, which isn't one of the countries, but that was where, before slavery was abolished in America, there were some people that said to repatriate Africans back to Africa. They went to Liberia. There's the Ivory Coast. So the Ivory Coast is still currency used by France. Then Burkina Faso. Then Mali. Senegal. And then Niger. This big country. Here's Nigeria, actually. It's right in the center. Boko Haram keeps bombing northeast Nigeria, which is kind of the center, kind of the heart of the African continent. I feel like Nigeria, the government itself in 2013 was accused of attacking its own people. So Nigeria is corrupt enough. We're an empire. We're not doing very good. World's policemen invading Nigeria is more preferable to anything. I don't know. And then like an Iraqi occupation, the Nigerian people need us. If we're going to be an empire. If we're not, then, we should have gone to Darfur and Sudan, which was right here. And I wonder if that had a lot to do with the same people. Here's Chad. Chad's part of the Central American Monetary Union. Then you have Central Africa. Then Gabon, Cameroon, and then 2 other countries there. But there's 14 countries in Africa. You see them right there, that still use the French currency. Here's a map that shows a little bit more. These blue hats are United Nations interventionists, and then these 2 soldiers are French. So, the United Nations has had to enter many of the same countries, but the French have nearly invaded each and every one of the countries that they have their currency in. So when their interests are threatened, then they're allowed to use force. So if you want to go to here, the siliconafrica.com, they're coup d'etat people. So anybody that's, doesn't get on board with the France controls Africa's money plan, there's a guy named Olympio. 3 days after he started printing his country's own currency, a squad of illiterate soldiers backed by France killed the first elected president of newly independent Africa. We didn't kill Haiti, which was the first democratic president, but we kidnapped him and forced him to resign for the same reasons. I heard Libya, Gaddafi, because he was going to create an African currency, the United Africa, that he was killed for that reason. So Olympio was killed by an ex-French Foreign Legionnaire Army sergeant called Etienne Gassanabi, who supposedly received a bounty of $612 from the local French embassy for the hitman job. Olympio's dream was to build an independent and self-sufficient, self-reliant country, but the French didn't like that idea. On June 30th, 1962, Modibo Keïta, the first president of the Republic of Mali, decided to withdraw from the French colonial currency FCFA, which was imposed on 12 newly independent African countries. For the Malian president, who was leaning more towards a socialist economy, it was clear that colonization continuation pact with France was a trap, a burden for the country's development. And that's why on November 19th, 1968, like Olympio Keïta will be the victim of a coup carried out by another ex-French Foreign Legionnaire, the Lieutenant Moussa Traoré. Then you have Jean Bedel Bokassa carried out a coup against David Dacko, the first president of the Central African Republic. Then Maurice Yamega, the first president of the Republic of Upper Volta, now called Burkina Faso, was a victim of a coup. October 1972, Matthew Caracau was a security guard to President Hubert Maga, the first president of the Republic of Benin, carried a coup against the president after he attended French military schools for 2 years. So coup d'etat, right, in Burkina Faso, coup d'etat in Benin, coup d'etat Central African Republic, coup d'etat over and over again by French mercenaries. The numbers of coups in Africa by country, lots of coups: Togo, Tunisia, Ivory Coast, Madagascar, Rwanda. So as these numbers demonstrate, France is quite desperate but active to keep a stronghold on his colonies, whatever the cost, no matter what. Jacques Chirac said, without Africa, France will slide down into the rank of a third world power. Chirac's predecessor, Francois Mitterrand, already prophesied in 1957 that without Africa, France will have no history in the 21st century. So there's lots of things that, colonial debt is for the benefits of France colonialization. And since, just like with Haiti, they forced them to pay reparations, they still want to get something out of the deal. Automatic confiscation of national reserves, right? So in order to back their money, then they have to have something that backs their money, and that's how they say that the money is hard money. It's got something that backs it, unlike the American dollar. We used to have gold, but nothing backs it now but national reserves. So France has been holding the national reserves of 14 African countries since 1961. These are the same 14 countries: Benin, Burkina Faso, Guinea-Bissau, Ivory Coast, Mali, Niger, Senegal, Togo, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Congo, Brazzaville, Equatorial Guinea, and Gabon. So, control of their national reserves. The right of first refusal on any raw or natural resource discovered in the country. So if they find raw or natural resources, then France gets to say, no, we don't want that, which I don't know why they would ever say that. Priority to French interest in companies in public procurement and public bidding. So French companies get first dibs on new projects, exclusive right to supply military equipment and train the country's military officers. So only they can supply military equipment, giving it to their friends so they can kill their enemies, and they could also train whichever ones they want to train. Right for France to pre-deploy troops and intervene militarily in the country to defend its interest. which, we saw that it's happened many times. Obligation to make French the official language of the country and the language for education. So not only do you have to use the French currency, but also have to speak the French language. Obligation to use France colonial money, the FCFA. So obligation to send France an annual balance and reserve report, or else they don't get money. Renunciation to enter into a military alliance with any other country unless authorized by France. Renunciation. Okay. Obligation to ally with France in a situation of war or a global crisis, right? Hey, you're our allies, we need you. So that's a lot of, it's not just using their currency, but it's forcing them to be allies in, military interventions. They can pick and choose who's their allies, who's not their allies. They have to send, they get the first dibs on the natural resources. All the reserves are put up in order to back the currencies that they use. If there's raw materials that are found, then France gets first dibs on it. They can use their own companies to get into the bidding process. Obligation to make French the official language. So not only the currency, but they got to learn the language in the schools. And for all business and government matters, they have to use the France's CFA currency. And the CFA currency, it's the name of the two currencies. I don't know what CFA is supposed to mean, but Kifa, Sifa, here it says the name right here. Colonies of the France of Afrika. So it's French African colonial money. That's what the fucking name of it is. They're not even sort of, hiding what it is. Here are the 14 countries, just to make sure that I got the right countries. Benin, Burkina Faso, Guinea-Bissau, Ivory Coast, Mali, Niger, Senegal, Togo, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Republic of the Congo, Equatorial Guinea, and Gabon. So those are the 14 countries that France still controls. So they're a little empire. They're a little mini. They're like America Junior in some respects. And then they can supply military equipment, train the country's officers. So France has, still a type of colonization that's happening in Africa right now. And we've seen what Napoleon did to Haiti. They wanted to stop the march of the black man. The progress of the black people had to be stopped. That was the point of Haiti. And Napoleon wanted to reconquer and re-enslave Haiti. Not for money, not for commerce, but to stop black people in general. To stop Africans, people from Africa, with darker skin color than Napoleon, from progressing. That's the point. So, when it comes to attacks, Boko Haram and, ISIS attacks, terrorism that's happening in Africa, we should be just as equally concerned about the African nation of Nigeria as, say, Libya or Sudan or Iraq or Afghanistan or, the Balkans, whatever that war, Kosovo war was. So there's terrorist attacks happening in Nigeria. Are we going to intervene and declare war on behalf of Nigerian people? Or are we going to only declare war on behalf of the French people? So that gives us a right to expand the empire. And empire doesn't help me. So that's this is what France still controls today. This is still part of France's empire. And I bet you actually there's more to France's empire. Let's look it up. Let's just look up France. Wikipedia. And we're going to find out how big the French Empire is, right? So we know that there's 14 African nations that are beholden, not militarily occupied, but beholden to France and the benefits of being, part of the French culture.